break of about 15 minutes, so be back in your seats by 10:44, please. Thank you.
The House is gaveling in briefly for 1-minute speeches. Later at 5 Eastern, the chamber will begin legislative work for the day on several infrastructure naming bills. Requests for recorded votes will be postponed until 6:30 Eastern. The main work for the week focusing on 2 bills dealing with offshore oil and gas drilling. Live coverage of the House here on C-SPAN.
The House will be in order. Prayer will be offered by our chaplain, Father Conroy.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we give you thanks for giving us another day. Guide the members of the People's House by the spirit of understanding, which will lead them ultimately to eternal wisdom. Since we live in a world of human failure and broken promises, may they be tolerant of the faults of others because they are so aware of their own unfaithfulness. All of us are yet to realize our own full potential as being truly the free children of God. Bless all with a quiet respect for the diversity of opinions. Through honest dialogue and contemplative listening, may your servants gathered in this assembly search all the avenues open to them to meet today's challenges of integrity and justice. May all that is done this day be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. Pledge of Allegiance today will be led by the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Slaughter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Chair will entertain up to 15 requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise? Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, House Republicans are focused on solutions that will give our economy the boost it needs to fully recover and help put Americans back to work. Our nation has an abundance of energy resources that, if accessed, would create jobs, promote our energy independence, and lower prices at the pump. Today, the President will once again abandon his claim to support an all-of-the-above energy stance and unveil a new plan focused on waging a war on coal, with big government regulations destroying jobs. In contrast, this week, House Republicans will have the best interests of American families at heart when we vote on 2 key pieces of legislation included in our all-of-the-above energy plan. Increasing our offshore energy production, introduced by Congressman Doc Hastings of Washington, and lifting moratoriums on exploration and development, introduced by Congressman Jeff Duncan of South Carolina, are necessary to provide American families with a more secure future. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we'll never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism. Congratulations, former Chief of Staff Eric Dell and his wife Tori, for the birth of their son, Noah Isaac Dell, on Sunday, June 23rd.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition? Without objection.
Thank you, sir.
Bobby Blue Bland, a Memphis and American music and blues idol, passed away on Sunday at the age of 83. Bobby Blue Bland was born Robert Calvin Brooks in 1930, and in the 40s he moved to Memphis. And in 1949 he joined a group called the Beale Streeters, which was a loose-knit group that included Johnny Ace, Roscoe Gordon, Earl Forrest, and B.B. King, giants. He later worked for Junior Parker and B.B. King, two other giants, and then he went on his own way and became one of the great singers, blues singers of all times. His four top singles were Turn On Your Love Light, Call On Me, That's the Way Love Is, and Ain't Nothing You Can Do. He had top 100 hits almost every year for 40 years. His songs were covered by the Grateful Dead, the band, and Van Morrison, and he influenced Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, and the Allman Brothers. He's been in every music hall of fame you can think of, including the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the initial class in the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. He served his country in the Army from 1952 to 1954. He's survived by his wife, Willie Mae, his son, Rod, his daughter, Patrice, 4 grandchildren, and millions of discs and CDs that people will be loving forever. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose is the gentlelady from North Carolina seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to quote from one of President Obama's climate change advisors, Dr. Daniel Schrag. The one thing the President really needs to do now is to begin the process of shutting down the conventional coal plants. A war on coal is exactly what's needed. My goodness, where are the Obama administration's priorities? Not on jobs, not on affordable energy. President Obama's war on coal is already a threat to thousands of American jobs. Many in my home state of North Carolina, where 17 coal units are already being shut down, in part because of EPA policies. Americans want energy independence, more affordable gas, and jobs. The Keystone Pipeline, coal and coal-fired plants have jobs to offer and can play a role in bringing our country closer to energy independence. The President and his regulators should be less invested in declaring a war on American coal and more involved in supporting American energy producers and the jobs they already provide. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from New York seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to the majority's proposal to slash funding for the nation's lead poisoning prevention efforts. At a time when we should be working to eradicate lead poisoning, the majority's Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations package cuts funding to the Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control by over 60%. We need to be focusing more on our efforts ensuring that children live, play, and learn in healthy environments free from a lead hazard and not less. The number of children in the United States suffering from lead poisoning remains unacceptably high. A recent report by the Centers of Disease Control found that 1 in every 38 children has dangerous blood levels. Those levels lead to cognitive and behavior problems, a loss of IQ points, a lifetime of adverse health effects. It is estimated that lead exposure costs the nation more than $50 billion in lifetime productivity losses. Over the past 2 decades, HUD's Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control has successfully treated 168,000 units for lead hazards and improved the lead safety. This is no time to backtrack, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise as unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the Speaker. We're 6 months and 6 days away from the full weight of the President's takeover of American health care. It's like a train careening down the tracks on a collision course with the American economy. Last week, Gallup released a survey of small business owners, and it's even worse than it looks. Almost half of small business owners reported that they have frozen hiring because of the Affordable Care Act. Another 20% said that they have already had to lay off workers because of this law. So that's 1 out of every 5 small businesses laying off people because the legislation the administration forced on hardworking Americans. That's a staggering amount of difficulty that people are going to have to suffer because of the administration's short-sighted policy. The President and his allies are under the faulty impression that educating people about the Affordable Care Act will suddenly make it popular and make it work. The truth is that people are already finding out far too much about this law as it costs them and their family members jobs. We have to continue highlighting the destructive parts of this law before it destroys an already weak economy. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise? The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1613, the Outer Continental Shelf Transboundary Hydrocarbon Agreement Authorization Act. Over 3 years have passed since President Obama and then President Calderon agreed on the need to finalize a transboundary hydrocarbons agreement, which now needs to be approved by Congress. This agreement would establish a cooperative process for managing the Gulf of Mexico to promote joint utilization of transboundary reservoirs. The transboundary hydrocarbon agreement, said to be enacted after decades of indecision between the Republic of Mexico and the United States, allow oil and natural gas production on 1.5 million acres that was previously off limits because of border issues. The Mexican legislature has already acted on this agreement, and we're now waiting on Congress to act. The transboundary agreement is good for the United States and is good for our relationship with the Republic of Mexico, and it's good for economic growth and good for environmental protection. This agreement would allow the American industry to work directly with Pemex, instituting cutting-edge technologies, and I ask Congress to approve this, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I seek recognition to address the House for 1 minute.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, after over 4 years with unemployment at or above 7.5%, it is no wonder that the American people do not have faith in this administration's ability to lead. Of the 9 counties I represent in North Carolina, 7 have unemployment rates above the national average, and in several of those counties, the unemployment rate is above 10%. Madam Speaker, North Carolinians, like all Americans, deserve better. We need to seize opportunities for economic growth and job creation, and one of those focus areas should be energy independence. More domestic production would not only increase our country's competitiveness in the energy field, but would create jobs, Madam Speaker. It would also lower prices at the pump for American families who should not have to worry about busting their budgets to fill their gas tanks. Unfortunately, the President's energy plan will only make American energy more expensive and hinder job growth. Madam Speaker, the American people are focused on jobs and the economy, and this administration needs to do the same. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revising from my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, 2/3 of the American people want the border secured before other immigration reforms are implemented. The Senate bill ignores them. Most Americans feel that legalizing millions of illegal workers would take jobs away from U.S. citizens. The Senate bill ignores them. Most Americans want to stop illegal immigration. The Senate bill only reduces illegal immigration by 25%. Most Americans feel that legalizing millions of illegal immigrants would be a drain on government services. The Senate bill ignores them. Most Americans don't want to increase the number of immigrants beyond the very generous 1 million admitted every year. The Senate bill doubles that number. Those considering the Senate bill should stop, look, and listen to the American people.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Our economy continues to struggle. Nearly 12 million of our fellow Americans remain out of work. Why, then, does the President still insist on standing in the way of creating new jobs by expanding America's energy sector using all of our valuable resources: water, wind, solar, gas, and oil? And all of the above energy strategy is what America needs to grow our economy, to create real American jobs, and to strengthen our national security. What we don't need is more government regulation and other interference from Washington, and it looks like that is all this administration is prepared to offer. House Republicans have a plan to make the most of all of America's energy resources. We already passed legislation to approve the Keystone XL pipeline, and this week our Offshore Energy and Jobs Act is another part of that plan. It's a common-sense solution, and it's what the American people deserve. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. What purpose does the gentleman from Kansas seek recognition?
Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute. To revise and extend my remarks.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to address the mounting financial challenges facing our college students. With student loan debt over $1 trillion, even larger than the credit card debt in our nation, students are taking on a significant financial burden in order to realize their dreams. Soon that burden may grow, as interest rates are set to go up significantly on these loans that students hold, thereby increasing the cost of college dramatically in our country. Congress must act, and the House already has. A month ago, the House proactively took action to ensure America's college students and their families continue to have the nation's support in pursuing their collegiate aspirations. In passing the Smarter Solutions for Students Act, the House would keep rates low for college students and create a permanent solution to this annual problem, getting Congress out of the business of setting interest rates. Mr. Speaker, I hope the Senate will take up the Smarter Solutions for Students Act to create certainty for today's college students so that they, too, may have a chance to realize the American dream. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Missouri seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
As I stand before you, President Obama is down the street at this moment outlining his proposal to tackle climate change, with the centerpiece of his plan aimed at attacking the backbone of affordable energy in America. While he will not explicitly say it, this is the next step in this administration's war on coal that they have been waging for the past 5 years and which will not stop until all coal-fired power plants in this country have been shut down by the EPA. I, on the other hand, believe that producing affordable energy and being environmentally sound are not mutually exclusive, and I truly support an all-of-the-above policy that utilizes renewable and clean technology without eliminating our most reliable source of energy. Instead, the President's current course of action is a direct attack on the middle class, who are affected more by rising energy costs, all under the deception of pursuing climate change. Mr. Speaker, I strongly suggest that the President consider the American people first when making these decisions on our country's energy policies. And I yield back.
Pursuant to Clause 12, Section A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 5 p.m. today.
The House returns this afternoon at 5 Eastern, at which point the Chamber will begin legislative work for the day on several infrastructure naming bills. Any requests for recorded votes will be postponed until 6:30 Eastern. The main work for the week focuses on 2 bills dealing with offshore oil and gas drilling. Live coverage of the House when members return at 5 Eastern. The Supreme Court today invalidated a key provision of the 1965 Voting Rights Act.